Hello aspirants, looking at editorials in question bank for 4th November 2016. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper today is how to balance our gigs. So this is regarding gig economy, which is an economy driven by technology and algorithms. So the present case is of Uber, which uses a matching algorithm, matching drivers and passengers in a particular locality. So it is using a software, an online platform, a smartphone, and app facilitates this. So this technology driven model, it says, Uber says that we are an intermediate. So we are an independent contractor connecting drivers and passengers. But a recent ruling by an employment tribunal in London has said that drivers of Uber are not independent workers. They are not self-employed people. They are workers of Uber. So they are entitled to minimum wages and also to paid leaves. So this is the ruling which will have its implication for around 40,000 Uber workers in Britain. So this case is of an example of how workers' rights have to be upheld even in this modern technology and environment of gig economy. So of course there are benefits of this, benefits for both passengers and drivers, because drivers in this case have flexible working hours. So that is the benefit. They are paid as per the rides provided by them. So that is how the payment takes place. Plus also passengers are benefited by having minimum waiting times. So and also they have clarity about the rates which they have to pay for the rides. Plus also they have an easy system of grievance redressal. So these are the benefits of this system too. But then gig economy needs to be regularized. In India, the major problem is regularization of this economy. So that is the case because we don't have clear idea about their policies and their rates. How do they charge? So all these aspects need to have clarity, and then regulation has to be brought in place. So the problems in India are a little different from what we are seeing in Britain, because there it is much more widespread and advanced. In India it is still developing. So Indian government needs to bring in regularization which is convenient for the users too. They understand these regulations too, plus in keeping with the times as per the requirement in the economy. So that is what the editorial speaks of. So this is about the gig economy too. You can see how the connectivity is provided. So it connects workers and customers. So that is the idea. Users work whenever they want. So that is the flexible working hours. A rate is paid for a specified task. This is a third characteristic, and payment is intermediated by the platform. So there is a software platform through which payment is done. So this is the entire aspect of a gig economy. Next editorial is on getting real on Oro. So this is regarding OROP, one rank, one pension scheme, which is the demand of armed forces, the armed forces veterans. Veterans means those who were there into services and are now retired. So veterans are demanding one rank, one pension, because pension is paid after retirement. So the rate at which pension is paid is determined by your last salary drawn. So the last salary drawn will vary over the years. So people who have retired at the same rank but have retired on different dates over the years have different pensions coming to them. So even today, at this date in 2016, a pension paid to a very old veteran based on his last salary drawn will be very low, and pension paid to a very recent retiree will be high. So this gap should not be there. So that is the basic demand of OROP. This has been the demand of the armed forces for the last 40 years, and eventually now the government has accepted it. Even the former UPA government accepted but did not go ahead with any action on this because it is a huge burden on the exchequer too. So huge budgetary allocation will be required for this as well. But the present BJP government, it brought this into force, but still there are some wrinkles which need to be ironed out. So those issues have resulted, delays in payments have resulted into the suicide of a Subedar, which has been completely politicized presently. So now what are the further demands on OROP have to be taken into consideration because of the high voltage action which we are seeing by opposition on this matter. So the other problems which are there, because the OROP armed personnel were on a strike, they were having a dharna, but then that dharna was ended 6 months back because of the assurances given by the government, and government has taken action on this too. Now they have again started protesting. So few demands which still remain to be fulfilled are these. So these first of all is about annual equalization as against approved 5 years. So every 5-year equalization of pension would take place has been agreed, but then they want annual equalization. Why a 5-year gap too? So that is one aspect. Second is exclusion of those who opt for premature retirement. So anybody retiring prematurely is not covered under OROP. So this is one aspect. So they demand they should also be covered under OROP. Third is implementation from April 2014. So the date of OROP implementation has been decided as April 2014. Till before that, whatever has been paid is not taken into consideration. So this is again a controversy or a dispute aspect between the two sides, the armed force personnel and the government. And the last is adoption of the highest pay scale of 2013 for revision of pensions. So revising of pensions will be based on 2013 data. So here also there is no consensus. So these are the aspects. Of course, it has financial implications, budgetary implications, a huge administrative challenge to get all the pensions being paid to all the armed force veterans. So of course, in this case also the government says that the suicide occurred, OROP has already been implemented, but there were some problems at the bank side because of which he did not get his pensions, and that has resulted in this tragedy taking place. So we have already discussed OROP earlier. It has come in news quite often. You can go through this image once again, the content given here. We have discussed it earlier as well. Then about the present demands too, as you can see, the 4 issues which still remain, which need to be wrinkled out, are pointed out here as well. About the premature retirement, that they should also be eligible for OROP. Not linking OROP with the 7th Pay Commission, that based on 7th Pay Commission recommendations, OROP will be regularized and that will be based on the present pensions. It is same, but then they say it should be implemented in perpetuity, means later too, whenever the revisions of pay take place, then OROP will also come into effect. So that is another demand, that this should not be one-time exercise, but later when revisions will take place and again they have to make a demand for one rank one pension, should not be the case. So this once done should always be upheld. Then the third demand about the pay scale, they say the highest pay scale of 2013 should be used for revision of pension and not the average of the maximum and minimum of the pay scale in 2013. So use the highest pay scale. So that is another demand. Then the government wants to implement OROP from July 2014. Ex-servicemen say that it should be implemented from April 2014. So these are some issues. The payment of errors have already started. They say in 4 half-yearly installments the errors would be paid, means from 2014 till present date. Those are called errors which have not been paid till now. ARR, EARS, errors. So that is the case. So this is about OROP presently. Next we look at the question bank. The question bank, the lead article in today's paper is regarding Islamabad, about the cricketer turned politician Imran Khan. He has declared that he will go for a complete protest and shutdown in Islamabad and Rawalpindi. This was his plan, but then he has presently backed off. So the lead article actually discusses about this whole issue. We have already discussed this in news, that this shutdown was planned to ask Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to step down. The reason being that he is charged on corruption in the Panama Papers, which were internationally leaked. So we have all discussed all that. So that news aspect is sufficient for us. We don't need to go into too much detail of this. So this lead article is not important for us. Then another article is regarding again All India Muslim Personal Law Board and Muslim personal laws. So again this issue we have discussed quite often. There is nothing new in that article, so we don't need to discuss that. Another article is again on citizenship amendment and the government's plan to provide citizenship or facilitate providing citizenship to minorities from Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Pakistan. So these religious minorities from Muslim majority countries are of course Hindus. So this aspect is again controversial, but that is how it is. So these illegal migrants, Hindu illegal migrants from Bangladesh, would get easier citizenship provisions rather than others. So this is a little controversial aspect, which is again discussed, as some will go to polls again. So that is about the article. Again, we have discussed all this, and the Constitutional Amendment Act, already a question had been framed and we have discussed it in question bank. So again, now we don't need to go through this article. There is nothing more in that. Only one article which is of new and of significance is about Brexit. So Brexit and its implications on Indian businesses in Britain. So that is one article based on which we have framed a question and detailed it out. So this question is the question of what impact of Brexit will be felt on Indian businesses in the UK or those looking to invest now needs answers. Discuss. So Indian businesses in UK have been there for long. There are many prominent entities here. We have Tata Steel up there, Jaguar Land Rover, which is a subsidiary of Tata, which is also up there. They are stalwarts and big employers in UK. So this whole issue comes because of Britain deciding to exit. So what would happen to all these entities? We have Bharti Airtel, which is in telecom sector, HCL in IT sector, MQR Pharmaceuticals, Apollo Tires. So these are businesses well established in UK. So after the referendum in June 23, Britain has decided to exit EU. This exit will take place over 2 years as per the Lisbon Treaty under Article 50, which we discussed in news today only. So this exit, after this exit, what would be the relation between Britain and EU is still not clear. But then British government is trying to make this exit easier. So for that it has given many assurances to various sectors as well. So we'll discuss them in detail here. The first aspect is that now companies will need to acquire licenses to work in UK as well, because earlier there was one license for Europe. So that license remains, but then it will not be applicable in Britain. So then fresh licenses for Britain have to be acquired. So many companies have started that process also. So for them processing has already started. So that is one aspect. Specifically for each sector, when you talk of the automobile sector, the thing is that in automobiles, the car industry is dependent on a cross-European supply chain. So they export their products over the continent. So it's not just Britain is the market, but EU completely is the market. So then for them, there will be tariffs if exports take place from Britain to other country in EU. So for that, what would be the tariffs? So that is a concern. The British government has assured the automobile sector that there will be zero tariffs or tariff-free relationship for automobile sector. So these assurances have been given, but again we have to wait and watch how does it go ahead. Then in the steel sector, again the thing is that it is interconnected. It is heavily dependent on EU. Half of the steel exports go to entire continent of EU. So then what would happen on this case also? Again, there is a aspect of anti-dumping tariffs. So the steel coming from China especially is put in under anti-dumping. So there are tariffs charged on it because Chinese steel is very cheap. So then EU's does not have anti-dumping duties very high. Even Britain has always been against anti-dumping duties being very high. So then how will this work? That how will the steel sector which is present in Britain face competition from Chinese steel? That is a concern. Then the pharmaceutical sector. So in this pharmaceutical sector too, the problem is that European Medical Agency is headquartered in London. So then of course the headquarter may also change because it is exiting EU. So then how will registration of drugs take place in Europe? Because once registration done in Britain, then there will be separate registration required for Europe. So these aspects also have to be taken care of. Some pharmaceutical centers target Britain. Some pharmaceutical sectors use Britain as a launchpad to have their products throughout Europe. So then how will their business be affected is a problem. But then one positive aspect which is seen is because of the Brexit news, the pound has become weak. So when pound currency has become weak means it is cheaper for Indians to invest in Britain right now. So these companies are acquiring many firms also. So that is the time for cheap acquisitions. So that is also seen in pharmaceutical sector also presently. So that is the positive side. Other aspects may be positive or negative. The aspect is that it is uncertain presently. The relation is not clear yet between Britain and EU. Then the next sector discussed is IT sector. So IT sector also, it basically depends on movement of people, actual software professionals who move around EU. So then how will that be affected? How will that aspect be taken care of is another concern. But of course, as we said, that pound has become cheaper, because of which many acquisitions are also taking place. Also, contracts which have already been signed will have to be renegotiated because of the decline of pound. So that aspect is also highlighted. So these are the aspects. Of course, it is challenging for the British Prime Minister too, Theresa May, who would be visiting India soon too. So let's see, we have to wait and watch how does the relation evolve between Britain and EU, and then how the Indian businesses would take this ahead. So this is regarding various companies, Indian based companies in Britain too, and their details: Tata Motors, Hindalco, Infosys, HCL, right? And this is regarding the Brexit and possible impact. So possible impact near term and possible impact over a long term is both discussed. Currency volatility, which we are seeing for British pound to presently, stock market became volatile, political turmoil, there is uncertainty, and low US interest rates is one aspect. And about the possible long-term impacts is changing in trade tariffs and custom duties on UK imports and exports, which we'll see over the time now. Then slower UK and EU GDP growth, so both will be negatively affected too. Increased UK deregulations, so that is also expected. And changing UK immigration restrictions, because they want to come sternly on immigration aspects too. So that is also one aspect because of which Britain wanted to leave EU. That they want stiffer rules for themselves, they don't want to open up the economy a lot. So that is called hard Brexit. And soft Brexit is one which will be pro-EU, which will want to retain much of the relations and the way things work out between Britain and EU. So we'll have to wait and watch whether it's a hard Brexit or a soft Brexit and how Indian businesses would be affected. So that is it for today. Thank you.